Meet Jim. Jim is an imaginary business owner who I like to use to and refer to when we're talking about and exploring different exit strategies. So Jim grew up in a small North Texas town, graduated from TCU, and married a local girl. Since then, for about 30 years, he's called Fort Worth his home. The marriage didn't last, but he has two twin girls and a boy who all attended private schools in the area. The oldest just graduated from UT and is working for KPMG in Houston. And the twins, well, they just started their freshman year together at SMU. Jim started out as a banker, but when he was about 32, he bought a manufacturing facility. So over the last 25 years, he's grown the business very successfully, moving out to a new facility near Alliance about 10 years ago that he now owns free and clear. Smith Manufacturing is an S Corp, and the building is owned separately in its own LLC. Jim takes a gross salary of $250,000 a year and on average distributes about $450,000 in S Corp profits and distributions. Now that sounds like a lot of money, but in addition to a mortgage on a very nice home, he makes sizable payments to his ex-wife. He had to buy her out of Smith Manufacturing 2 years ago when they divorced. And of course, he's got the twins and their tuition to deal with. So suffice it to say, Jim's investable assets outside of his business are relatively low. And that's not uncommon for business owners who have a high percentage of their wealth tied up in their company many times. This is why it's so important to carefully plan a transition that accomplishes your personal goals. Now, I'm a wealth manager, and you may be asking, what does wealth management have to do with the transition of my private business? Well, to this I would say, you really can't answer the most critical questions to transition without first going through the wealth management process. What's the most important question? Well, it's not how much I can get for my business, like most believe, but rather the most important question is, how much do I need? Now take Jim. He spent most of his adult life building up his business, just like many others who have done it before him. Along the way, life has brought good things and some challenges. But regardless, this is where he is right now. So we have to ask, how much money does Jim need to get the twins educated and live the rest of his days without Smith Manufacturing feeding his checking account every month? This graph illustrates the answer. Projecting cash flow needs into the future and matching those needs to income sources and assets, we get a picture of what Jim needs out of his business. You see the big spike about 5 years out? Well, that's the sale of the business. And the planning tells us a sale for around $6.5 million gets the job done. A $6.5 million sale in 5 years creates this nice mountain graph in our projections. Investments easily sustain Jim for the rest of his life, even in the face of 3% projected inflation. So the financial planning helped Jim not only find the amount he needs, it also helped him find the timing that best supports his personal financial goals. Now that's important because Jim can make decisions on transition that suit his specific needs instead of just letting market conditions dictate the outcome. If he sold his business today, he would probably get less. Why? Well, because you're crossing the spread. Think of it as if you were selling your house this evening. Is it ready? How do the walls look? The garage? What about that plumbing issue in the guest bathroom? All of these things may cause you to sell for less than the actual value. In other words, to cross over to the buyer's offer instead of the other way around. In my business, we call that crossing the bid-ask spread, and it's something you want to avoid when you're buying or selling stocks or businesses or homes. Jim is good with waiting in this scenario because the steady income from the company will help defray college costs and pay down the note payable to his ex-wife prior to sale. He can use the time that he has to clean up his balance sheet, analyze ratios, and make changes that will optimize the value of his business to a potential buyer, thus avoiding crossing the spread. As a business owner, you've been setting and attaining business goals for your entire career. It would be silly to just up and suddenly put your business up for sale and take whatever the market bears. No, the prudent track is to set a price goal with an associated workflow that gets you there over a period of time. So that brings us to our second most important question. How do we get the price we want? Well, to illustrate, we will look at 3 different scenarios. The initial plan illustrates a simple $6.5 million sale in 5 years. But it's not that simple. You may have an earnout period, a possible seller finance, or maybe you end up retaining some of the stock. There are endless pieces to the structure of the deal that must be carefully considered against your financial needs. Getting to the finish line of an outright sale for the price you want will require a lot of work. It will also require you to carefully consider what pieces to the transaction are most important to you and what pieces are negotiable. Do you want to keep working in the business for a while? Maybe not. Do your needs support a seller finance option? Are you comfortable with and understand the risk of a seller finance option? Another question Jim may ask is, will my employees be taken care of? Well, Jim has built up a great management team over the years, and he feels a certain amount of responsibility for them due to their devotion and loyalty. What if he sold the business to his employees? Well, in general terms, there are many issues that will come up in this scenario. Will you be able to sell for as much as you would to an outside buyer? What if the management team can't handle it and you have to take it back? How do you unravel a transaction like that? Where will your employees get the money to buy you out? And how long is it going to take? Well, this type of transaction is very plausible, but you'll want assistance putting it together because it can get complicated and a lot of things need to be thought through. In a third scenario, that would be a generational transition. In Jim's case, as we mentioned before, he has a son working in Houston, and his son might be interested in running the business. Well, lots of questions come to mind here. Is the son capable? How does Jim keep things fair with his twin girls? We know, based upon Jim's personal finances, that he can't afford just to give it away. In many cases, a grantor trust can be used here, or other means to gift some of the business to the kids and still retain some control and value. Now, in a grantor trust, this means that you may continue to pay the taxes, though, since the kids may have limited liquidity. Does Jim's plan support this kind of altruism? How will Jim's son come up with the money or get approved for a loan if you go through the transaction in that route? Again, very possible to complete a generational transition, but you'll want and need help. Outright sale, sale to employees, or generational transition. These are 3 options that Jim could easily consider. Which one is going to work best? Well, it's hard to know. It's something that Jim will have to decide based upon the facts. And again, as we mentioned before, it'll take time and some effort. So if you're interested in transitioning your business, don't wait. Make sure that you give yourself years of time in advance to go through some of these complex issues with your advisors and come up with the right solutions that'll get you to the finish line. As always, if you have questions or if you just want to talk about these types of issues, feel free to give me a call. Thanks.